variances. Okay, so we've been given our standard cost card here, which is showing us information about the costs we incur for producing each unit. So for our labor variances, for the labor rate variance, this is the information we need. Okay, this is for the labor. This is our standard rate or standard labor rate, so we're going to use it for our labor rate variance. This is the number of hours it takes to produce one unit. So this one we're going to use it for our efficiency, labor efficiency variance. Okay. Then for our total labor cost variance, we're going to use this 16 kwacha there. That's the information we need to focus on. So we've been given information about our actual results in terms of labor. Labor hours paid for amounted to 8,500 hours at a cost of 67,800. So we need to first get our labor rate variance. Did we pay more for our labor or did we pay less? So the labor rate variance, we're asking basically, how much did we expect to pay for labor for the actual production versus how much we actually spent for labor? Okay, this can be written down as a formula like this: our standard labor rate minus our actual labor rate multiplied by the actual hours paid. So when you multiply your standard labor rate with your actual hours paid, you're answering this question: how much did we expect to pay for labor? Then when you multiply your actual labor rate with the actual hours paid for, it will give you how much you actually spent for the labor. So we need to get our actual labor rate. Okay, so our actual labor rate is our total labor cost divided by the hours paid for. Our total labor cost was 67,800 and we paid for 8,500 hours. So our actual rate is 7.9765 kwacha per hour. Now I would advise, okay, since in the exam you won't be comparing the answers by both methods, okay, but since here I'm using both methods so that I want to show you that you get the both methods you can use to arrive at the same answer. So I'll leave this as it is, 7.9765. Okay, and I'll show you in a minute why I did that. Okay, so we found our actual rate. Okay, now we're asking first, how much did we expect to pay for labor for our actual production? So that's our standard labor rate multiplied by the actual hours paid for. On our cost card, our standard labor rate was 8 kwacha per hour and we paid for 8,500 hours. So this is what we expected to pay. Okay, for those 8,500 hours our workers worked for, we expected to pay 68,000. But in actuality, in the question, it's already been given to us. Okay, it's given. So in actuality, we paid 67,800. Okay, we actually paid less. Okay, so 68,000 minus 67,800, we saved a 200 kwacha. If we use the formula, our standard rate 8 kwacha minus our actual rate 7.97. Now you see I left it as a decimal place so that our final answer, because I was going to get an answer which is different from 200 or further from 200. So 8 minus 7.9764 multiplied by 8,500 we get 199 kwacha 0.99, which can be rounded off to 200 kwacha. So we saved 200 kwacha on labor. Next, we're going to the labor efficiency variance, and this is basically what we're asking. How many hours should we have been worked for actual production? It says how many hours were actually worked for the actual production. Okay, so it can also be written as a formula. Okay. Standard hours minus actual hours multiplied by the standard rate for labor. Now with the efficiency variance, you're not going to focus on the labor hours paid for. That's only for the labor rate variance. Here we're going to focus on the actual hours worked. Okay, so now we need to find out what were our standard hours for actual production. Okay, basically how many hours did we expect to work for actual production? So you get your standard hours per unit. Okay, as I said here, for labor efficiency variance, the standard hours per unit, excuse me, is 2 hours. So So 2 hours per unit. We produced 4,800 units. So this is the number of hours, 9,600. This is how many hours that should have been worked for actual production. For the 4,800 units we produced, we expected to take 9,600 hours. But in actuality, in the question, they told us that they worked for 8,000 hours, meaning they were efficient. They worked for less than what was expected. So 9,600 minus 8,000, the workers saved 1,600 hours. And if you multiply that by the standard rate of 8 kwacha per hour, it's like the workers saved 12,800 for the company. If we use the formula here, standard hours minus actual hours multiplied by the standard rate, so 9,600 minus 8,000 multiplied by 8 is to get 12,800. Oh, as I said, it's favorable. I forgot to put this. This is favorable. Our labor rate variance also was favorable. And then finally the total labor cost variance. Okay. Basically we are comparing how much did we expect to spend on labor for actual production versus how much we actually spent, the total we spent. Okay. So we can get what we expected to spend on labor. Our direct labor cost per unit multiplied by the number of units produced. Our direct labor cost per unit was 16 kwacha. 16 kwacha per unit, if I recall. Yes, 16 kwacha per unit. We produced 4,800 units. So 16 multiplied by 4,800. You get 26,800. So yes, 76,800. Or you can just say your standard hours multiplied by your standard rate. This 9,600 multiplied by 8, you still get 76,800. This is how much we expected to spend in total for labor. But we actually spent 67,800. So we spent less. So when we subtract these two figures, we get a 9,000 kwacha, which is favorable since it's positive. Alright. So basically, we saved 9,000 kwacha in terms of our labor cost. Okay, so this is just similar also with the formula. The formula is just standard total labor cost minus actual labor cost.